Alright, so in this video we're checking out the AxisFlying MANTA 5-inch. So this came to me as a bind and fly analog version. It also is available in a DJI version. Now, some of these parts and bind and flies are available at Pyrodrone. I know you can definitely buy it at the AxisFlying website, although stock at Pyrodrone seems to be kind of in and out. So you'll probably need to check those links. Sometime in the future, if it's out of stock. I think the frame was currently out of stock, but the stack was not, or vice versa. I think the frame was not in stock, but the stack was. Anyway, I think that a lot of these newer companies are having some issues getting supplies in place for a lot of the stores. I think that's across the board. So if you're having a hard time finding this model, that's the reason why. You just have to be patient and keep looking, checking back later. They'll probably update their stock at some point. Anyway, this did come to me fully built like you see here. You can buy the frame separately, of course. If you just want to buy the stack, you can buy that separately as well. Okay, so just talking about the frame itself here. It's a True X frame, not a hybrid or squished X. So for those of you who want sort of really nicely balanced flight characteristics, the True X is the way to go. Pretty standard stuff here. You got 5mm arms. The bottom plate here is a 2.5mm bottom plate, and same with the top plate. And in this design, the bottom plate goes all the way across from front to back, which is a little bit old school, but they are using this aluminum like bottom sandwich plate here that actually has like grooves and stuff that hold the arms in place. So you can just remove 2 screws to do a quick swap of the arms if you happen to break one, which is nice. And the way this bottom aluminum plate works with has like these locking mechanisms that hold the arms in place so they don't twist or anything like that. And this is, I believe, 70-75 aluminum, along with the standoffs. The 20mm standoffs are also 70-75, and then you have aluminum front camera cage as well. So they're all using some pretty nice parts. I mean, the frame is not cheap. It's about $80, so it's definitely up there in price. You get these little TPU arm bumpers here, which also act as motor guards and also landing gear, because otherwise you'll land on these screws over here where the bottom plate is. Got a TPU mount here for your GoPro, and a TPU mount here for your SMA antenna as well as your receiver. So back here you could probably accommodate a crossfire antenna. In this case they're using, or they sent me the Express LRS receiver, the 2.4 gigahertz with their receiver. So in terms of the bind and fly, you get these nice motors. These are also new, also from AxisFlying. I believe these are 2207 size motors, and they're 1960 kV, so you want to run this on 6S. These are customized props from AxisFlying. I think they're made by GymFan, not 100% sure about that, but they're AxisFlying branded props that are made for this frame. The camera here is a Runcam Phoenix 2 Micro, pretty standard there for analog. And then you have a Rush Tank Mini VTX in the back here. Oh, and then I forgot to mention that the carbon that they're using on here is T700 carbon, so a bit stronger than regular carbon fiber, but I think most of the mid to higher end frames use T700 carbon now. So I think that the most innovative thing about this 5-inch frame, because otherwise it's pretty much vanilla in terms of what a 5-inch frame looks like in terms of other designs out there, is going to be this stack. When you can buy this separately, of course, for your own build. I think they call this the iSTACK. It's a F7 flight controller that's in there, and then you have a 4-in-1 50 amp ESC. I believe it's a BLHeli32, and it can do up to 128 kilohertz. But the thing that's different about this, as you can see here, it's a fully encased design. So the only thing that's sticking out are the solder pads for the motor wires. And you have your capacitors here in the front, and then the battery lead comes out over there as well. But the flight controller is inside there, inside this metal key, or like an aluminum box that protects all the components of the ESC and the flight controller, so it's covered on top and on the bottom. Of course, it does add weight, but I'm seeing more and more designs now that are trying to protect these components, because Oftentimes, when the props are spinning, you land, it hits a rock or something gets thrown in there, and then like a little tiny like capacitor or some small component on the board gets knocked off, and then all of a sudden your quad won't fly anymore. So this is the trend nowadays, to protect the electronics in there so that things don't get like dust and stuff that won't get in. It's not waterproof, so if you're going to be going into a lake, you're still going to be in trouble. But that I would go with the product page and look at all of the pictures of this. It's fully enclosed. The flight controller inside there is actually soft mounted on some rubber grommets, so even though the whole box is hard mounted to the frame, the flight controller is soft mounted. So now, because everything is enclosed in here, you have to use a series of plugs to basically access things like the camera plug and the plug for the VTX, etc. Obviously, they have this also working for DJI, so there's a plug for DJI as well. And those extra plugs are included in the kit, but there's no soldering that needs to be done in terms of extra wires other than the motor wires. And I'm not 100% sure if the XT60 comes pre-soldered on the box or not. I'm not 100% sure about that. You might have to solder that on, but you definitely have to solder on the motor wires. But everything else in terms of the VTX, the receiver, and the camera are all on plugs. And of course, this is using USB-C to connect to Betaflight. Alright, so this is how much the drone weighs with no battery or no GoPro, about 432.5 grams. So, just showing you a little bit of the flight footage here. Really no surprises in terms of the way this flies. It's very nicely balanced, being a true X frame. 2207 motors, of course. So for those of you that prefer doing a lot of like punch outs and stuff in your freestyle flying, the 2207 is going to be better than those that maybe want to do more flowy type of flying. And it's kind of hard to explain, but basically, if your flying styles tend to be more in the upper end of the throttle range, the 2207 motor is the way to go. And of course, 1960 kV is a little on the high end for success. So you could get better flight time if you put a motor output limit in here. But of course, if you're not trying to maximize flight time, you're trying to get the best performance possible, then the 1960 kV on 6S is totally fine. You're just not going to have like super long flight times. I think if you go with like maybe a 1300 6S, that'll probably give you a good balance of flight time versus performance. Roughly, I would say about 4 minutes of pretty good flights on this model. But overall, I didn't really, I wasn't really surprised by this model. It just, the motors and the ESC setup and everything, pretty standard stuff. I had nothing really new or different about this, other than the fact that they have this enclosed case for the stack, which does protect the electronics. I think overall that will lead to more longevity for the drone, because it'll survive better in crashes. And then when you do crash and the props are spinning and throwing dirt and little pieces of rocks into your stack, you're not going to be busting that very, very expensive component. This is a pretty pricey stack, if I'm not mistaken. It's a I would say it's up there in terms of the price, and in terms of performance, it's typical for an F7 with 50 amp ESCs. I wouldn't say that it's top of the line, like super amazing, or and at the same time, it's not junk either. It's more than adequate, does the job, and I didn't have any issues with desyncs or weird things happening, and the PID tune on this seemed to be fine coming out of the box. Okay, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.